Hi, welcome to Great Goodness. Great Goodness. Thank you so much for being with us today. My partner, Karen Stewart, in Great Goodness, and we have Tamara J. Madison with us today as our goodness guest. And I'm so excited to hear all the things that Tamara has to share. I've been a big fan of hers for a long time. I was an immediate fan, in fact. So, oh, like, comment, and subscribe. If you love what Tamara's showing, sharing, which I know you will, be sure to comment and show her the love. If you like what you're feeling here, be sure to like it and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the other people who are coming up and sharing light and sharing goodness. It is just the most uplifting experience I think I've had in a long time to be able to spend these moments with these creatives. And so it's so filling, and I hope it'll be that way for you too. Also, if you're someone who is putting goodness into the world, or you know someone who's putting goodness into the world, we want to talk to you. So reach out to us. Uh, all the ways to see more about Tamara's work, all the ways to reach out to us, they're all down below in the About Us section. So just look down there and reach out. Um, and so now I'm going to turn it over to fabulous Karen Stewart to do an oracle reading for us.
And then, okay. Well, today we are going to be looking at a card from the Herbal Astrology
And I love this
Oracle
one.
deck. I love this deck. And this is a deck that was created by Adriana Ayales, and the artwork is by Josephine Clerks. And this is published by Hay House, the deck. And I have to say, it comes with a really lovely booklet. I'm not selling it, I'm just sharing this. I love this deck so much. It's a really lovely booklet that gives all kinds of historical, folklore, medicinal, lots of information about all different kinds of herbs. It's fabulous. So, what we're going to do today is I'm just going to shuffle the cards a little bit more than I have already. And I'm just going to pull a card, and we just like to look at the card, consider the images, and just whatever it speaks to you. It's just kind of like a thought prompt. Let's say it's a thought prompt. All right, so let's see. And here is the lovely back of these cards. Isn't that beautiful?
It's beautiful.
That's the back. Oh, I don't know anything about this. This card is number 45, Mandrake,
Sensuality, 45. That's really interesting.
isn't it? I know it's a root. I know the root is used for something, but I am just looking at how it's personified in this illustration with open arms, right?
And are those, so does Mandrake, do they have nuts or are those acorns? And then the blue flowers?
They look like some kind of little seed pods.
Okay.
And then there's some sort of like columns over here, maybe
hmm
something historical.
I
I'm
find
just
that,
looking at the openness of it. It's
yeah.
like that, all the leafy goodness. It just looks like life to me. Openness.
Well, I think it's really interesting too because it says sensuality, which I'm gonna have to look
Right.
up Mandrake because I'm not familiar. That's one I'm not familiar with.
I'm
I
not
don't know.
either.
I don't know if you are, Tamara, but the sensuality makes me. It's really interesting because Tamara's our guest today, and her work has a sensuality to it. I don't know if it's.
Oh,
I mean, do you think your work has a sensuality to it, Tamara?
Yes.
Yeah, it's and and it's something in the rhythm and the words that are chosen. When I read your work, it I embody it. Like it comes into me and I feel it and I feel it like a movement. It's a very sensual work. So
mhm.
yeah. So it was interesting. That's the first thing I thought when I saw it.
So I noticed something interesting about that card. Um, you said something about how it looks like the arms are open.
Mm-hmm.
From the neck up, it's
Mhm.
flourishing and flowering. And look how big
Yes.
it is, right? It's not
Right.
really the size of a normal head.
Mhm.
It's like the extended hair,
Mm-hmm.
like big hair, or like a mane, which is like power.
Mhm.
And the arms are
Yes.
open, but the bottom roots are
Mhm.
crossed
The
as
legs
if
are
the legs
crossed.
Yes.
are closed,
Mhm.
which to me says something about being discerning and being mindful of when they open, right? They're not
Oh,
wide open like the arms, right? And just
yeah.
being very mindful of what when that chakra, if you will, or
Mhm.
whatever
Yeah.
is open and what it opens to, right?
Mhm.
Even though the arms
Oh,
are open. And
I
that
love that.
positiveness at the bottom, I think, is what allows the open arms and the flourishing at the top. I think
Mhm.
they're all connected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm feeling that too. I'm looking the when you pointed out like the shape of the root, and there's such strength in those in the lower like the legs,
Mhm,
even though the roots go out and they're very tiny and tendrily at the ends, but there's strength there.
mhm,
And I think going along with what you're saying, that sensuality is not sexuality, and so
Right.
remembering that and that being part of that discernment, I think that you're talking about, because I think we can confuse the two,
mhm,
you know?
Hmm.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
lots to think about today.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
hold that.
Thank you, Karen. And I'll let you go ahead and tell us all about Tamara.
All right, here is
Well,
the
a little piece of Tamara.
a little tiny bit of the
Yeah.
skinny on
Yeah.
Tamara. So writer and poet Tamara J. Madison is the most recently published author of Threed, This Road Not Damascus, published by Trio House Press. Her writing is inspired by her ancestry and relations. Her work has been reviewed and published in various journals and literary magazines, including the Amistad, Appalachian Review, Poetry International, Cider Press Review, and World Literature Today. Tamara has shared her poetry on the TEDx platform and is the creator of Breakdown, The Poet and the Poems. She is an MFA graduate of New England College, and she's an Anaphora Arts, Hedgebrook, and Ucross Fellow. She
Mm.
teaches English and creative writing and is currently completing a new poetry collection. So excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Threed is the way that I met you. Well, I met you through poetry, through Zoom, through Cultivating Voices,
Mhm,
which is an amazing community. And then I got to read Threed, and I think I reached out to you and was like, "Can I please write a review? May I please write a review of this?" Because it was exactly what I said. I mean, it was so moving, and your work was so strong, and so some of what I felt like you were doing was like reaching back and coming forward. And so I have to ask, this new project, is it completely different? Is it more the same? What are you working on?
Yeah, I want to know.
I know.
You're absolutely right. Threed was in three sections.
Hmm.
So that first section was the reaching back. The
Hmm.
second section was more about the present. And the third section was more about what I consider to be transition and ascension, right?
Hmm.
In that,
Ascension.
hmm hmm
Mm.
In that first section, there was actually a poem that was written for my great great grandmother. And believe it or not, her, my sister actually found her picture. And we saw it for the very, very first time when we were actually doing the edits on Freed, right?
Mm.
So we were editing the galley,
Mm.
and this picture was found, and my sister sent it to me in a text message. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to put a poem for her in the book. So I ended up putting a piece for her in the book. And ever since then, I think it just stirred a cipher and a yearning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I've been looking at old photos and going through some archives from our family. My mother was the story keeper of the
Mm.
family, and she kept a lot of the photos, some of the letters, and other archives. And she passed them to my sister and me. And after Threed came out, this idea of writing more poems around family just kept, it stayed with me. And so here we are years later. And the book that I'm working on now, that's all that it is. It's all
Mm.
Mm.
about my family tree and my lineage and the stories that I know of, the online research that I've done, some old letters that I've read, pictures. There are a lot of persona poems in there. And then there are poems where I am asking questions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
And seeking answers and that type of thing. So it's definitely a lineage project.
Will this one have photographs in it or
Angela, I don't know.
okay.
I'm trying to figure out whether I want to do that or not. Um, because several people keep telling me, yes, of course it will. We've got to see, because I have shared a lot of those photos on social media and things like that on my platforms. And I am still on the fence about whether I want it to actually come out in the book or not.
Do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about that decision? Like because I can think of some things. Like why don't I why don't I do that?
I
And
have a blurt too.
okay, blurt, go ahead.
I'm just listening to you talk about it. I'm thinking, okay, if I were doing it, because I too have my mother was our story keeper, and I've got the photos and the love letters where she was dating my dad and all sorts of family things. And I'm thinking, the writing, people will have their own vision,
Mm-hmm.
of they,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
photos are nice too, but there's,
I agree. I was gonna say that now because I was kind of curious.
yeah.
Did I interrupt you, Karen? I'm sorry.
No, I interrupted
Okay.
you first.
No, but it
So,
was perfect. It was good. So I because I thought one, you may want to that may be yours. Something you may want to keep something sacred, to you and to your family, and then also it gives it a universality
mm,
to some degree. It won't be, completely, but it lets people imagine the people for themselves, or some people will be able they can relate it to their families more
yeah.
if their storyline is similar or if they have some similar stories. If you don't have those pictures, and so I thought it, and that's why I was curious about what your thoughts were, Tamara, when you're considering it.
Well, it's interesting because I have used several photos quite a bit on my social media platforms, right? And when I first did it, it was like, okay, it's Black History Month. Instead of all of the traditional, people and historical figures that everybody knows,
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting my family up and I'm sharing little blurbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was 2022 or maybe 2023. And it was really important to me too, because so many of my ancestors on my mother's side had birthdays in February. I was like, oh, that's perfect, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I started putting up these little pictures and just like maybe a paragraph or so, of a story behind it. And people started responding out of nowhere. I really didn't expect people to respond. It was just a very personal, sacred thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really surprised at how other people who didn't even know my family responded.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is interesting, right? And so I was all open to that. But then when the book started shaping, I've been thinking a lot more, not just in terms of this project, but in terms of a lot of things. I've been thinking a lot more about rights and licensing
Mm-hmm.
and who will the
Mm,
photos belong to if I put them in a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
mm,
And we live in a culture that can be very exploitive or
Mm-hmm.
exploitative. I'm not sure what the word is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm thinking about it. I really want to
Yeah.
move with a lot more savvy,
Yes.
in terms of those kinds of things. So I haven't yet decided. I did speak to my sister about it, and she said, I think it would really be interesting for you to do a collage
Mm-hmm.
and do some kind of graphic design, and
Mhm.
that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I have done that for my own work. Like I have something up on a wall that I use as my workspace. And I've shared that in an online platform. So it's an idea, but I haven't decided. Yeah.
That is, when you're just thinking about how people reacted to the photos that you were posting online, I'm just thinking, well, that is such a visual. Online is a visual. It's the platform for photos, right? Um, but p- whereas the writing, we see your family members through our heart,
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
online we see them through our eyes. So it's a completely different. It adds a totally different layer if you have the photos with the words than when it's the focus is on the words, because then I am conjuring my own image in my heart of the people that I'm reading about.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about. It really does. I think it changes how a person takes in the work if they, yeah.
So, Tamara, I wanted to ask you another question about something that you said, because you were doing the galley when you added this poem. And so you followed your heart and you wrote this poem, which I mean, it must have been one of those gift poems that just comes because it had to have come quickly, been ready to go. Like, so can you share a little bit about like following your heart, or would you say it was your heart that you followed when you were like, I have to do this, and there it is.
Yes, it was exactly that,
Okay.
right? Because Threed goes back to the birth of three-breasted woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there were poems in there. There were actually poems in there for my great-grandmother, right? Already in the galley. But then I saw the picture of her mother and
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, it's just a step that I missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just followed through with that and just put that in there. And that has become one of the signature pieces of that book for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so okay, do you typically do collage, or do you have other mediums that you work through?
Not at all.
Okay. How,
Not
Mm.
how long have you been poeting? Has that been all your life, or
ever since I was a teenager.
Mm.
what brought you to it?
My sanity. Um, no, I take that back. I take that back. The storytelling in my family. I
Mm.
think I was a nosy little girl, and I always paid attention to who was talking and the stories that they told and how they told stories. My grandfather was a minister, and I was raised in the church. So this
Mm-hmm.
idea of the stories told in the pulpit, whether it was from the Bible or whether it was from something happening in the community. And I loved hearing people tell stories. So that's part of it. And I just had a thing for language. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when
You
I was
do.
really, really young, my parents put me in a summer school program, I think like in first grade or something, because I read and I spoke and I wrote so well.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to go because a friend of theirs was a principal and she wanted a stronger student around the students that were struggling. And so I ended up going, that year. And it was just a thing for me to pay attention to language and how things were said. And so that was very, very early on. And music. of course, growing up in the church was a thing as well. So listening to the music of people's voices and how they told stories and things like that, that was always a knack for me. And so, when I was a teenager and it was time to be in the community talent show or the beauty pageant or whatever, I would write something. I would write a monologue and I would perform it or share it or something like that because it was different than
Mm-hmm.
what everybody else was doing. Other people were dancing or singing or roller skating, and I wanted to do something different. And so language really pulled me in.
I know Karen wants to blurt, but I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna get first. And so,
No, go, go.
because, okay, this is fascinating to me because I know you write about your family, but when you're talking about like your father being a minister, when you're talking about the music of the church, I can feel the way you write.
Mhm.
Like that is your voice. I mean, I can hear all of that in your poems, and that's so interesting. The way all of that comes through you and onto the paper. I mean, that's your sounds.
Mhm.
Her
Yeah.
work is musical, and it is like I did not know that your father was a minister, but I know that when I read
Hold
three,
on, Angela. It was
uh,
my
your
grandfather.
grandfather.
Yeah,
Okay,
my daddy would not want you to say that.
Oh,
Okay. So let's
okay.
be clear. Yes.
Okay, your grandfather. Your grandfather. I did not know that, but when I read three, like I felt that part of where I come from. Like, 'cause
Mhm.
I was raised in that. Uh, no, nobody was a minister, but I was taken to church a lot,
Mhm.
and so I could feel all of that in your work, and so it was really interesting to hear you say that. Um, and I guess so. My question is, you're a very intentional person. And so when you sit down to write a poem, like what is that process for you? Like how is it that you're showing up so authentically, poem after poem that I get to read anyway? I don't read all of it, I don't see the ones that don't come out. Um, what is that process like for you? Like how is how are you coming out on the paper so much yourself?
I would say, when you said that I was a very intentional person, I don't know if that's the best word to use.
Tell me what it is.
I'm not sure, but I would say, um, I'm definitely, I'm definitely a heart and spirit child,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I'm that person that was always more inclined to follow her heart with something,
Mm-hmm.
regardless as to whether it made sense or not. Um, for example, I was really good at math. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I started off majoring in engineering, and my heart just wasn't feeling it. My heart was feeling poetry. And that made no sense whatsoever, technically to my parents and on the page and with regards to a degree and all of those other things. But I was like, but I can't see myself doing this 5 years from now and it feeling fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so this idea of fulfillment is really important to me. And I don't think fulfillment is always intentional. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is a process of trusting, right?
mhm.
Going with the flow and trusting as you go
Yeah.
and tweaking as you go until it quote unquote feels right. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what brings forth the authenticity. I think it's the digging that you do
Mm-hmm.
until you find that pearl or that gem or whatever it is. I think that's what does it. And so just following the leads until I get to that place. So in terms of my writing process, it can be a number of things. It could be a line in a song that I hear. It can be someone talking in a conversation and there be an idiom or something that they share. It could be a voice that I hear from out of nowhere, right? As
Mm-hmm.
I look at a picture. Um, it could be the hair that stands up on the back of my neck and the quickening I feel in my body that says, uh-oh, wait, something wants to speak. A poem wants to come. Let me sit down right quick, right? So it comes in all kinds of ways, not just in one kind of writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that initial introduction or disclosure, so to speak, I try to jot down as much as I can. Sometimes I'm in the middle of something else and I just put notes in my phone or jot something down on a piece of paper. And I try my best to return to it, especially if there's a lot of rush behind it. I try to
Mm-hmm.
return to it. And I ask that okay, I'm cooking dinner right now, or I'm teaching class right now. Let me just jot this down. I'll be back. Okay. So I try to do that. And then I come back to it as many times as I can and as I need to until I feel like that piece is fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done right by that piece. And then
Mm.
I'm and that takes as long as it takes.
All right.
That
Here.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, that is ringing true to me. So what I'm hearing from that is rather than intention, which I think the intention is, this is what I'm taking away from that. Um, you are intentional about paying attention and honoring the message. Is that
Mhm.
accurate? Like
Mm-hmm.
that is I would think that it feels like that is your intention. Is like I'm going to honor what is being presented to me.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
and maybe that is the intention, to
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
translate as accurately as possible, right?
that's what I'm
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, yeah, because we all know that something gets lost in the translation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right,
And you want to lose as little as possible. Even if you're going from English to French, sometimes things will get lost. But you
right,
want to try and keep as much as you translate over to the other side as possible. So that
right.
Mm-hmm.
probably would be my intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't, nobody's going to receive that same message the way you did. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not intentional about honoring it, then it's just a breeze that came through the room.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So I've, I want to ask you to read some of your work for us, if you will. Because I have 1,000 more questions and then I won't get to hear any poems.
Sure, sure. You know what? I will read. I will read the piece from Threed. I'll
Okay.
read the piece from Threed that I just mentioned that was for Melinda.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you want, I can read a piece that's in the new collection that spills over from her.
Please,
That
please.
work? Okay.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Prophecy, Maternal Lineage 2 for Melinda. On the back of the photograph, one of my foremothers wrote, "This is Melinda." She knew one day, a century later, I would need to find you, framed in sepia, statuesque and fierce, eyes locked into the camera. You long saw me coming. Grandmama kept you hidden, fearing you'd blotch her milky skin, mar her Christian countenance. Uncle says you were native, corn cob pipe smoking Indian. Others say you Moor, descendant of the originals who first tamed Turtle Island. Textbooks and scripture twisted your legacy into caricature. I say, the way you stand there in your Sunday dressed best, staring across generations, daring me to be free, Miss Melinda, Madam, you were never anybody's slave. And so this
Mm,
next piece is from the new collection. And this piece is written in honor of Melinda's mother and father,
Mm.
okay, based on information that I've been able to find. The piece is also a response to the website, okay?
Okay.
It's called Timeline of a Life. Third great grandfather, add father, add mother. Setting, the ununited states of the Americas, Upper South, where slavery, though troubled, yet thrives, pockets too fat to release the reins and cat o' nine tails. Green Calvert, plantation owner, slaveholder, surname. Birth about 1830. Approximation suffices.
Mm.
Caldwell County, Kentucky, USA. Location imperative for head count of estate, representation, taxation, societal economic status appropriation. 1848, birth of son Lancaster. 1850, residence District 31, Franklin, Missouri, USA. One Black male child, age 10, in his care. 1856, birth of daughter Melinda. 1858, birth of daughter Jenny. 1859, birth of daughter Liddy. 1860, birth of daughter Paulina. 1860, death of estate holder,
Mm.
plantation owner, slave holder, property green, skilled in masonry, appraised at $1,500. 1861, birth of daughter Lucy. 1865, abolition of slavery in the ununited states. This information and documentation must be withheld as long as possible for the ease of transition and good of the country. Dissemination only on a need to know basis. 1866, marriage to Cassandra, as if she did not already exist, and the children
Mm.
birthed themselves. 1870, United States federal census lists Cassandra as inferred spouse and all the children as inferred children. Despite the 22-year survival and agency, tragedy and triumph of the couple, inference is still required documentation. 1889, death of Green, Princeton, Caldwell County, USA, Kentucky. Note, the online records provider offers an opportunity to explore, beta version, life through the eyes and lens of Green Calvert. Upon further exploration, it is determined that the lens is preposterous, with suggestions bearing no resemblance or sense regarding the life and kin of Green.
Mm.
mm,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Tamara.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I bet. And
Yeah.
so it does, honestly, I sort of feel like it deserves me to sit here in silence for quite a bit. But I feel like I also have to go on and ask you questions because this we have to go on and I have to let you go. Um, but it does bring me back to one of the questions I had before you started reading, and that is the way you're receiving these poems and the way what you're writing about, um, I feel I feel like your ancestors are speaking through you,
Mhm.
and so part like and you are speaking back to them by writing the poems, and that's who you're speaking to when you're saying, I am making dinner right now, but I'm going to come back to this, like,
Yeah.
and and letting them know that it matters and that their story matters, um and then the way that you're choosing to tell it. And I'm rambling, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, okay, just like a medium, it's a mediumship almost. You can tell me if you don't want me to say that, but a medium speaks to people on the other side of the veil. And your poems, like that's the work you're doing, is bringing forward those voices, it feels like, from the veil and making sure that they're actually seen. And it felt like at the end you were saying the way, yet again, yet again, the disservice has been done to the memory by the website.
Right.
And yeah, and you're doing that work. I don't think that it's a thing that can be corrected. Like that thing can't be corrected, but we can see green correctly through
Hmm.
you and what you give
Hmm.
us. Is that
Yes, absolutely.
bless
And
you?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I would say that there's a number of things that are going on, and I
Hmm.
realize I didn't read any of the persona poems to you. Both of the pieces that I read to you are my speaking to them or
Hmm.
my
Mm.
speaking to the issue.
Hmm.
And this last piece was my deeply personal response and
Hmm.
therapy, right? Because it's stunting to be able to go all the way back to the Revolutionary War on one branch of the tree. And then I can't get past 1860 something on another branch, right? Because it was not important to record people's names, right? It wasn't, none of that was important. And so it's as if green literally sprouted from the grass.
Hmm.
So in
Mm.
doing that research, I was like, okay, so I had to pull away for a moment. And it was very, very frustrating. So I was like, okay, so I have to write about this. So that was my own response. There are other poems in the collection where it's not really my voice at all,
Hmm.
and there are responses and there are people talking to each other. And sometimes, I guess maybe even all of the, well, most of the time, it's been because I asked. I literally
Mm.
asked, right? Um, we could not, my sister and I, we could not find my father's father for many, many years. And I was just like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, right? We know the grandfather on one side of the family. Why can't we at least find the grandfather on the other side, even though we knew he had passed away? And I was just like, okay, come on. I found something all the way back into the 1700s over here. And you mean I can't find you? I was like, listen, I need your help. We need your help with this. And it literally was a soul cry from me, right?
Hmm.
And
So
I ended up writing it in a poem. And sure enough, I don't know how long it took, but within a couple of months or whatever, my sister was on the phone on one side of the country. I was on the phone on another. We compared my digital records with her DNA test, and we found our grandfather, right?
yeah.
And we figured out which one he was. I had several men with his name, but I didn't know which one he was, and we found him. So then the next hurdle was to reach out to his daughter because we found out that my father had a younger sister and that she was yet living, is yet living. And that was a little more challenging
Oh.
because, you grow up thinking you're the only child and somebody says, excuse me, I think you're my aunt, that
Mhm.
kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so there was some resistance there. And so my sister and I, we pulled back and I started writing again. I was like, okay, dear grandfather, your daughter thinks she's an only child. We need your help with this. So that
Hmm.
was its own poem. And then the next thing you know, within a few weeks, she says, okay, I will agree to a call. And now we are in touch with her on a regular basis. So there has been that kind of dialogue and that back and forth. But some of the voices are not mine,
Hmm.
and it is more of a channeling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's one. I can't wait for this new collection to come out so that is, I wrote this in the review. We've really surpassed our time a little bit, but, but,
See about
but,
that?
but, but when I read the read, and I wrote this in the review, and that I knew it wasn't really written for me. I have a different history than what you were writing about, and I knew it was really important that I make sure of where I read it from,
Mhm.
so as to not do even more damage than has already been done. Um, and so when I say I'm excited to read your next um, your next book. I am not excited that it is a story that needs to be told. Like I wish none of that had ever happened. And so I
Yeah.
want to be clear about that. And I'm not excited because it's my story, and someone's telling it, or, I'm excited because it is a story that unfortunately needs to be told because these things happened. And I'm excited that you're doing it because I know you're going to do it well, and I
Mhm.
know it's going to touch so many people, and I know how many people need to be touched, and then how many people
Yeah.
need to be validated and need to know, like, if Tamara can tell her family story, then other people who don't know their story can tell theirs,
Mhm.
and we can put things back together
Mhm.
somehow. Like,
Mhm.
and so I just think the work you do, it's sacred work, it's spiritual work, and I'm just grateful for you and grateful that you gave this time to us today. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
And I know we're running long on time, but I do have to say this. There's a lot of erasure going on right now,
Yes.
like
Yes.
contemporary erasure, right?
Yes.
Not
Yes.
just from where I come from, but all over the place these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there is an urgency for people to take ownership and record and
Yes.
archive and guard their histories and their stories wherever they come from,
Yes.
because
Mhm.
you never know who's going to come with the eraser,
That's right.
right?
Right.
And so there's an urgency for that. Um, and what I found out was when we found our father's father, who had walked away when I think he was about two or three, and when we finally came in contact with his daughter, our aunt, and she embraced us without any kind of documentation or anything, she literally embraced us blessedly. It was so very deeply humbling. But what my sister and I realized was that, oh, wow, yeah, the poetry project is there, but what we're really doing is continuing the healing work that my father and his father didn't get to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
simple fact that
Yes.
our aunt reached back to us, that is some healing work that we can continue for them.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it's really important.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm,
Yes, it is. Thank you for saying that.
mhm,
Thank you for sharing that. And you're right, there is so much erasure going on right now of so we better get it all down. We better do that.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that it's going to come back up. I do not believe that it's going to stay like this. So we better get it all down for when that time comes. We can put it back up and more, so much more. Um, okay. So I'm so glad you were here. But we should move on and do a prompt. And I'm going to take this prompt, I'm going to expand on some of what you're doing and ask people whose story wants to be told through you. That's that's your prompt. So whose story wants to be told through you? What story do they want you to tell? How do they want you to tell it? It's because this could be poetry, this can be collage, this can be photography, this can be dance, this can be a screenplay. So take that time to root into the earth, to connect to the heavens or your higher self, however that is you see it, to sit in the power, to feel that golden power radiate from your core, to reach out, to make that soul cry, to who whose story wants to be told through you, and tell that story. Tell that story. So, um, it's just been wonderful. Thank you so much for being here on Great Goodness, Tamara. Thank you so much for sharing your time. Thank you, Karen, for being my partner in this. I'm so grateful to you. And like, comment, subscribe, share. There's so much to respond to here. And again, if you're someone who's putting goodness into the world, or if you know someone who is, please share with us because we'd really like to
Mhm.
talk to you. We really want to do this. Thank y'all.